Hello and welcome back. My name is Sarah. Today we are here for a low and slow practice on your mat that's going to target your low back and your hips. This is some of my favorite shapes. It really helps to ground me and bring me back into my body and the space. So I hope it does the same thing for you. Give you a little nourishment in the form of movement and breath. Thanks for being here. Okay, so the tools that I'm going to recommend today are, first of all, a yoga mat. Second would be a couple blocks, and then maybe a blanket. We don't want something super cushy or soft necessarily for this blanket. We want something that has a little bit of foldability. So it might instead be like a beach towel or a thick shower towel that you have that can be folded into something like this to sit on. So we're going to start in a seat. I like to sit with the blanket underneath my hips, gives me a little more room for the pelvis, and then Sukhasana, cross-legged seat. If this is not the seat, it could be a hero's pose, it could be up on a chair. Find your way to a comfortable seat. And then start to draw your shoulders up to your ears, and then exhale, let them go. Do that a couple of times, just kind of get some of the wiggles out. Let's start with a breath practice, and then we'll take this breath practice down to the floor in our work. Start to close the eyes if it feels safe. And start to just become aware of your breath. No need to change or manipulate it. Just notice and become aware. Watch the breath as it travels in through your nose, travels across the palate, down the throat, into the lungs, and all the way down to the belly. And the same thing when you exhale. Follow the breath out of the belly, through the heart, through the throat, out the nose. And then can you start to lengthen your breaths? Long, slow, steady breaths that can be as even as possible. If you've tended towards worry or anxiety today, perhaps your exhales are just a little bit longer than your inhales. And then let's see if we can expand this a little bit more, a little more vibrancy. As you inhale, can you start to feel the ribs and the belly expand, drawing the navel forward, finding as much space in your torso as you can. Exaggerated. And then exhale, draw the navel in, engage your core muscles, squeeze the muscles towards your ribs. And then continue. Inhale, find some vibrancy, some buoyancy, full belly breath. And exhale. If you're a visual person, maybe you want to start to bring your hands together, fingertips together. Inhale, you expand, come out wide with the hands while you feel your whole torso. You let your pelvic floor drop. You're expanding in all directions. And then your exhale, everything softens. Keep going with your breath. In through the nose, out through the nose. But if it gives you that representation, maybe the exhale's out through the mouth. Imagine when you do this, we're really trying to zip up the navel. Imagine that you have these tight jeans that you need to zip all the way up. A couple more breaths in this way. And then let's start to walk the hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra, prayer shape. Bring the thumbs to your sternum, sit up a little bit taller. Press your hands together, start to draw the navel in, find a little bit more connection to the crown of the head, finding a little more length, as though you could start to float off of your mat. Everything's engaged right down the center line. Set an intention or a dedication for your time here today. Let's take a big inhale in. Open mouth, sigh it out. Two more like that, a little more active. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, start to reach your hands all the way up to the sky. Nice active reach. Find even more length as you reach up. Inhale. Exhale, cannonball the breath. Release the hands down by your sides. Go ahead and activate your fingers, pressing them down into the floor. Roll the shoulders back. Let the creases of your elbows start to spin forward and maybe towards the diagonals of your mat. So you have a little external rotation through the shoulders. Start to drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. Start to reach your right hand up and over towards your left ear. Finding a neck release, maybe walking the fingers out a little bit further. Maybe right elbow starts to reach a little more actively over to the right. And then you choose the gaze. Gaze down and gaze up may change the sensation in your neck. One more breath on this side. Start to walk your right hand over towards your right ear. Guide your head back to center. Take a pause. Drop your right hand down and switch sides. Left ear to left shoulder. Left hand comes all the way up and over towards right ear. Give a gentle pull. Maybe activate the elbow. Change your placement of your right fingers if you want to be curious about that. And then send your breath into the side neck. Take an inhale. Your exhale walks your left fingers to your left ear. Guide your head back to center. Pause. Let your arms drop. And then start to draw your shoulders up towards your ears. Find some shoulder rolls. If you're like me, there's a lot of pops and clicks that come with this. Let it be natural and fluid, maybe one shoulder at a time. Maybe you'd rather come forward and then instead of back. Let this start to get a little more fluid. Arms can come high towards a side stretch. Move intuitively. And then let's meet on our backs. If you have blocks, go ahead and set a block on either side of your mat alongside your hips. Maybe your blanket goes under your head or just set it off to the side. That's what I would prefer here. All right, start to lower yourself down. Blocks are on either sides of your hips, about 6 inches or so away. Start to let your hands settle down by your hips. Bend the knees, draw the knees into the chest. And then wiggle side to side, one hand to each kneecap. Knees can move together or they can separate and move apart. Just checking in with our low back, the center of most of our practice today. All right, come back to stillness. Start to set the feet down. Let your hands come down to the floor. And we're going to find pelvic tilt. So feet are about hip distance apart. On your inhale, start to fill your belly with breath. Start to tilt the pelvis forward. Press the tail down. Big space in the low back. Your booty is still on the floor. Your exhale, draw navel in, hollow out the belly as you lift your tail. The upper back or the lower back's all flush with the mat. Move back and forth here. Inhale, roll forward on the pelvis. Maybe even bring your hands to your hips if that helps. Exhale, squeeze it all in, tuck it under. Back and forth with your breath. We're going to add on to this. So find the breath. Inhale, all the muscles of the ribs and the belly expand. Your exhale, they all contract, all zipper up like you're doing those high-waisted tight jeans. Much of low back pain is coming from lack of core strength. So right now we're just trying to find our core muscles. All right, let this come to softness. You can stay here if you'd like, or we're gonna add on a twist. So inhale, full belly breath to tilt the pelvis forward, same work. Exhale, navel tucks in, engage the core, let your knees fall over to the left. The block is here, and maybe it's your support. Maybe it's on mid setting or low setting. Full breath here, same work. Exhale, core engages, knees draw back to center. Inhale, full belly breath, pelvic tilt. Exhale, core engages, knees fall over to the right. Full belly breath here. So this is a really slow motion. How slow can you move this? Gaining awareness and strength in the core, while also finding a little movement through the hips. Add your stop through the middle, full breath, pelvic tilts, knees to the opposite side, and then a couple more each side. The next time the knees fall over to the left, this will be your last round. Even yourself out, and then let's meet back at center. All right, meeting back at center. Grab one of your blocks, and we're going to slip it underneath of our sacrum. So start to lift your hips, press down through the feet, block on the lowest, widest setting, set it down onto your bony structure. If you're up in the small of your back, you've gone too high. Okay, let your hands fall down by your side. This shouldn't feel painful. If it does, let's find a different version, maybe coming off of the block. If you want a little more, you could come up to a higher setting of the block. This is a restorative bridge pose. Spend a few breaths here with the support underneath of you. Opportunity for a little more. I'm going to only recommend this if you're on the lower setting. So I was on a higher setting, so I'm going to lower back down. If you want a little bit more, you could extend your right leg long, letting the heel touch down to the floor. Getting a nice stretch through this right hip flexor. Maybe you stay here. Want to keep that left knee over hip. If it started to widen, draw it back to center. And then if you want more, maybe you also extend the left leg. Maybe the toes start to open out a little bit to the diagonal. Remember, this shouldn't feel painful, and if it does, back off of it. Only extending one leg, we're not extending any of them. When you're ready to come back up, start to draw in the first leg to plant, and then draw your second leg back in. Start to press down through the feet, lift the hips, remove your block. And lower the hips back down. Wiggle it out if anything calls to you here. And then bring your block underneath your left foot. So if you can scooch it down, you don't have to have a block here. But if you do, plant it underneath of your foot. You want the whole foot to try to be planted. Now that's going to obviously be dependent on your size foot. So ditch it if your foot doesn't fit on it. Okay, start to reach your right leg high to the sky. Point and flex the toes. Circle out the ankle. Get a little movement, a little fluidity here. And then press a little stronger down through your left leg. You notice how that might start to fire up the thigh a little bit? That's good. That's the awareness we want. And then start to draw your right toes back as though you're pressing your foot into the ceiling above you. Start to draw a big bend to the knee. Draw the knee more in towards your chest to find a little compression right at that hip flexor. If you want a little more, straighten the leg again. Make your right hand into a fist and bring it right into the lower abdominals, right into the top part of the thigh, and then you can kind of compress down. If that doesn't feel good, then don't do it. Start to expand your left arm out to the side in an airplane if you have it, or bend the elbow for cactus. Take an inhale here. Let your exhale open up this right knee and bring your right ankle to your left knee. Start to draw the right knee out and away for a figure four. This hand can stay in a fist, or maybe now you expand your pointer finger and your thumb, making a little backwards L. Your thumb goes in your hip flexor, your pinky or your pointer finger goes right on the outside of the hip. And this can help you to guide the hip away. Any twinging in the knees, we want to back off of this. And now you can stay here, or maybe find a little more activation of the top part of the left thigh, pressing into the right ankle. You can stay here, or if you want even more from here, start to float your left foot, grabbing onto the outside of the thigh with your left hand. You can interlace your fingers around your hamstring by removing that backwards L from your hip crease, pulling the whole leg package in. Send your breath into your outer right hip. You can stay in stillness, or if a little rocking side to side sounds good, do that. Let's take another breath here. And your exhale is going to release the interlace. Drop your left foot down. If you weren't there, we'll meet you there. Uncross the legs and extend your right leg out long. Let the heel press down. Point the toes. Start to soften the foot and then let the toes tilt side to side. Little internal and external rotation. All right. Keep the right leg as it is. Start to draw the left knee in towards your chest, either interlacing the fingers at the top of the knee on the shin or at the hamstring at the knee crease, up to you. Squeeze this left knee in and in towards your chest. Find that same compression that you had on the right side. Drop your right hand down to your right hip and start to open up this left knee, bringing your elbow down to the floor like a kickstand. Flex both feet. Both feet are nice and active. Send your breath into your inner left thigh. If you want more, start to straighten the left leg. Maybe bring your hand underneath your shin if you take that version. Both shoulders want to stay flushed. Gaze still wants to be high. If you have even more space, maybe your pointer finger and your middle finger and your thumb grab onto your big toe. Find your breath wherever you found yourself in this continuum. And then when you're ready, if you have your toes, release it. Start to bend your knee. Draw the left knee into chest. Right knee meets left. Squeeze yourself to center. Rock and roll side to side. Little transition time from that work. How do you feel? How's your low back feel? What are the quality of your thoughts? Can you try to stay here in the present moment? All right, slowly start to walk your feet down to the floor. You're going to kick that block over to the right side of your mat underneath your right foot now. Find that press down through the foot. Feel a little activation in the thigh. Hands come to your hips. Start to reach your left leg high. Point and flex the toes, circle out the ankle. Little movement. And then start to flex the toes closer towards your nose. Make a fist with your left hand. Bring it in between your hip crease and your thigh. And then start to bend the knee so that you can create a little compression in the front part of the body. Go back to version 1 if that doesn't feel so good. And then as you're ready, we're going to start to draw the outer left ankle just above the right knee. Open up the left knee. Figure 4. Make this fist now into a capital L that goes onto your hip crease and your outer hip. Press a little more actively into the right thigh, into the foot. And extend your right arm out, either an airplane or cactus arm. This might be where you stay for this side. Or maybe you start to draw your right hand down to your thigh, start to float your right foot 90 degrees. Maybe even releasing your capital L with your left hand and interlacing your fingers around your hamstring. Send your breath into your outer left hip, your low back. Gentle movement may be called for here. All the while you're breathing and using your breath as a tool to create more sensation. If you have the interlace of your hamstring, slowly release it. Plant your left or your right foot, and extend your left leg out long. Let the heel touch. Hands come down by your sides and start to toggle the toes side to side. Little internal and external rotation of the hip. Protect the knee. If this feels like pinching, find something different. Let the left leg come to stillness. Start to draw your right knee in, interlacing your fingers at your shin or your hamstring, your knee crease. Release your left hand down to your left hip for stability. Start to draw the right knee over to the right, using your right elbow as a kickstand. Sending your breath into the inner line of the thigh. You can stay here, or you can start to straighten the right leg. Bring your hand to your shin, or maybe your peace fingers and thumb to your big toe. Wherever you are, you're breathing. Let's take another breath. Start to release your big toe if you have it. Start to bend the knee and exhale. Draw everything back to center. Left knee meets right. Squeeze it all in. Exhale. Release your feet down. Take a moment. Notice how you feel. Start to kick that block out from underneath of you, off to the side, and then widen your feet as wide as the mat. Let your knees knock towards one another gently. And then pick up your hips slightly. Just lift like a millimeter and then set the hips back down. Maybe gives you a little more space in the low back. Take a moment to just let all that work settle. Today's practice is a short flow just to check in with the lower back. This is where we're going to end. Start to extend your legs out long. Let them be as wide as the mat. Hands can just open up by your hips, palms face up, or maybe they reach up overhead so you're in the shallow X shape. Let the effects of your breath to body movement settle. I encourage you to spend another 3 to 5 minutes here if you have the time. This is where I'll say goodbye. When you're ready, eventually you'll come out of this, but I'll end the video now so you can just do that in your own leisure. Thank you for spending your time, energy, and practice with me. I wish you well. Namaste.